Hey kids, have you ever been confused whenever your teacher starts talking about poetry and wondered exactly what is poetry? Well, stay tuned because that's what this video is going to teach you all about. If you have the foldable that goes along with this activity, you're going to need some scissors, a glue stick, and some colored pens or pencils. But you can just use a regular pencil. They don't have to be colored. These are the handouts I'm going to be using in this video. If you don't have them, you can click the link in the description box below and go grab yourself a copy, or you can just follow along and see what you learn. If you have these handouts, you're going to cut out all these ice cream scoops and this cone. And then on this page, you're going to cut out this scoop and this cone. And I'm going to tell you exactly what to do with them next. All right, we're ready to start our What is Poetry foldable. So you're going to take this ice cream cone that says the definition for poetry, and then the scoop right here that says what is poetry. This definition says poetry is a type of writing where words are arranged based on their meaning, sound, and rhythm to share ideas and feelings. So we're going to glue that one over here on the left side of this page as just a reminder of what poetry is. So you're just going to glue the back of that ice cream cone, stick it on there, and then you want to glue your ice cream scoop so that it doesn't cover up the text, but it covers up the opening of the ice cream cone, just like that. And then we're going to put all of our specific definitions over here. So we're going to start with the cone, and you're going to have to get it really close to the bottom and over on the left side because you want room to write some examples on the right side. Okay, so you're going to glue this cone that says poetry down at the bottom. Remember to get it close to the bottom and on the left because we're going to be writing on the right side of the paper. Then grab your definition for form and make sure that it doesn't cover up the word poetry on the cone. And you're going to glue the back of that. You don't have to fold the line or anything, just glue the back of that down. And then you're going to get the title for form and you're going to fold back on that line and then fold forward, and you're only gluing on that flap because you want it to lift up so you can see the definition underneath it. See? All right, the next one we're going to do is figurative language. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to glue the definition down first and don't cover the title for form. And then you're going to fold that flap backwards and forwards so that it opens up, and you're just going to glue that flap down. Now, if I'm going too fast for you at any time, just pause the video so that you can catch up. All right, now we're going to do sound devices. Definition first, and don't cover up figurative language, and then fold the flap on the title and glue it on the top. And the last one we're going to do is imagery. So the definition first, glue it down, and then you're going to fold that flap and you're going to glue that down on the top. And then you're all done. Just pause if you need to catch up. Now that we've got all of these glued down, we're going to start talking about some of these things that you might see in a poem. So imagery up here at the top, it's describing something in a way that makes the reader feel like they can see, hear, smell, taste, or feel it. We're going to write an example of imagery over here. The wind chilled me to the bone, and my teeth chattered as my breath swirled in the air. Pause the video if you need to so you can finish writing that down. So when we think about imagery, we're really thinking about using words to describe something in a way that it could really put an image or a picture in the reader's head. So I can definitely imagine this. I can think about when I've experienced something so cold that I felt like I was chilled to the bone. I can hear the sound of my teeth chattering. I can see, breath on a cold day swirling up in the air. So we're using some words to describe this in such a way that it makes the reader feel like they're actually experiencing it. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is sound devices. Sound devices are tools used carefully in order to create sounds and mood within a poem. And we're going to write an example of that. The slippery, silly snake slithered and hissed through the crunchy leaves. All right, pause the video if you need to catch up. So you can hear some repetitive sounds in there. We can hear some repeating of the sounds in some of these words. Slippery, silly snake, and slithered, and then we hear it again in hissed. We can also imagine the sound of these crunchy leaves as a snake is sliding through them. So they're using words that create sound or that make us think of sound in interesting ways. All right, our next one is figurative language. These are phrases and figures of speech that mean something other than what the words actually say. And we're going to write an example over here of some figurative language. My dad says that cell phones cost an arm and a leg. He's going to explode when he sees this cracked screen. Pause the video if you need to catch up. All right, well, this is something, some of these words mean something other than what they're actually saying, because we don't actually pay an arm and a leg to buy a cell phone. It just means they're really expensive. Now, is Dad really going to explode when he sees that cracked screen? No, it just means that he's going to be upset. So these are figures of speech that we know mean something other than what they say. Okay, the next one that we're going to talk about is form. Form is the style of poem and the way in which it's written, whether it creates sound, tells a story, has rhythm, or makes you laugh. So we're going to write an example of just one form of poetry. There's lots of different types or styles of poetry. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. Okay, pause the video if you need to catch up. Well, obviously, no one could really live in a shoe or have that many children in a shoe, and she didn't know what to do. It's just kind of silly, but it does rhyme. So there are some specifics that make this poem lyrical or sound kind of sing-songy. They also have patterns of rhyme in them. You can watch my other video on forms of poetry to learn some specific forms of poetry, but this is just one that's kind of silly. The last thing we're going to do is we've got poetry right here. We're just going to write an example of a poem that you probably have known since you were pretty young. All right, here's our example. It says, roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. And you're probably chuckling to yourself right now because that seems so simple and so silly that you've known that since you were a kid, but it is a poem. And it actually has some of these characteristics. It does have some imagery, even though it's pretty simplistic, because we're telling the color of these flowers and we're giving you a taste, you know, thinking about sweet sugar. It does have some sound devices in there because it does rhyme. We've got some words that rhyme. We've got blue and you. And it doesn't really have any figurative language in it. These words really do mean what they say. And the form of poetry for this is just a very simple 4-line poem that rhymes, and it has a specific rhyme scheme. And I talk about some of those things in some of my other poetry videos, so be sure to check those out. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something. Thanks for joining me.